on, you guys? This is Outriders Day 1, and I'm going to be giving you guys another Outriders build video. And with this build video I'm going to be giving you guys, it's going to be a Pyromancer 2.0 debuff build, or buff build, whichever one you want to call it. So, the reason why it's going to be the 2.0 is, obviously it's going to be better than the previous Pyromancer buff build that I had posted, but because I wanted to share this build with you guys, that it is going to be fairly different. It's not going to be the same in terms of gear, but some of the mods, or most of the mods, are all going to be pretty much the same, as well as the abilities. But yeah, I'm not going to show any like actual gameplay either, because the gameplay is literally the same gameplay that you had seen from my Pyromancer debuff or buff build video, or my Eye of the Storm 2 minutes and 37-second video, or the other versions of the Eye of the Storm runs when I ran this in the team. Now, this is not a solo build, so don't expect to be doing numbers with this, like high damage numbers solo or anything like that, because it's, like I said, it's not a solo build. It's meant to play in a team. It's meant to get easy gold clears when you're in a team. But let's go ahead and get right into it. Alright, so you're probably wondering why I don't have any legendary gear on. And that's because you don't need the legendary gear on. When the legendary gear that I was wearing was the Akari set. The reason why you don't need the Akari set anymore is because you don't need to increase your anomaly power. As you can see, I have 64,000 anomaly power. And the reason why is because it doesn't matter whether you have anomaly, max health, or firepower with this build. Because it's not a build that's more leaning towards being able to do damage, but it's a build leaning towards being able to help your team be buffed a lot more than before, and having your skill cooldowns back a lot faster, as well as being able to apply statuses a lot longer to your enemies. So as you can see with the Akari set, what it says for the set bonus is every enemy damaged by heat wave grants 50% anomaly power bonus for 10 seconds, which is really good if you're running an anomaly build, if you are using it for actual damage. In this case, we're not using anything for actual damage for ourselves. We're using everything to buff our teams and debuff the enemies. Everything, all 10 of the mods on your gear is going to be leaning towards doing just that. So every single mod that you have on all 5 pieces is going to be important. Now, there might be like one mod that you probably don't necessarily need to use, but for the most part, all of them are going to be very, very, very useful to have. Now, let's start off with the helmet. I have anomaly power, cooldown reduction, and status power. So, the stats, you can have anomaly power, max health, or firepower. Doesn't matter. But the 2 stats that are very important, all 5 pieces, is going to be cooldown, status power. Because you want to be able to reduce the amount of cooldown you have, or increase the cooldown reduction as much as possible, which the cap would be up to 7 or 47.5% or something like that. And then you want to have a lot more status power as much as possible. And the cap on that is about 180% status power. Now, for the gear itself, you want to make sure you get the tier 1 mods on the top. The first mod, which means it's going to be the easiest way to find your pieces is find any green gear that has cooldown and status power first on any character, and then send it over to your Pyromancer. And then when you roll it to a blue, from green to blue, make sure you can get any of the tier 1 mods you see that I'm listing here, because you're not gonna be you need the tier 3 mods on all 5 pieces as well. So this is very tier 3 heavy build. You want to make sure you have all 5 pieces with these tier 3 mods and these tier 1 mods, like I said before. So Ride the Wave and Fire Tsunami. And then my chest piece, Ash Increase Range, and Branded. So Ash Increase Range increases the range for Ash Blast by 66%. Branded increases the damage that enemies take by 40%. And this can stack up 2 times, so they take up to 80% more damage. My legs, I have Tidal Wave, Heat Wave. The skill can be activated 1 more time before triggering the cooldown. And then Strength from Fire. So Strength from Fire is actually pretty interesting, because it's worded really, really weird. It says that using the skill grants 8 seconds 10% weapon damage bonus for each affected enemy, which is actually not true. because I was testing this out with somebody, and it's not that it increases the firepower. Firepower is not affected. It's your actual damage output. So his damage actually did go up by 10% when I did hit one enemy with Heat Wave. Is a completely different enemy that he was already fighting. He was doing like 4,000 damage just with a regular shot, no buffs active, no blinded bullets, nothing, just body shots. And then when I used the Heat Wave on one enemy somewhere else, he was doing 5,000 something damage. And it was, I mean, obviously it's really noticeable because it's a whole 1,000 increase. And if he has all these different damage buff increases, he's going to be getting like 10,000 or 50,000 damage increase depending on how much damage he's already doing. Now, when I read it, it said each affected enemy. So to me, I was thinking maybe it can stack on multiple enemies, multiple targets. But it doesn't, which is weird because it says each affected enemy. I hit 3 targets with one heat wave, and then I hit another couple enemies with another heat wave, and then another couple enemies with. So I used all 3 of my heat waves, and he was still only doing 10% increase, or he still only had a 10% increase in his weapon damage. So that obviously means it only goes up to one enemy. So I don't know. It might reset the counter for the heat wave rather than it just going from 8 seconds and going down all the time. It might just go 8 seconds, 7, 6, 8, 7, 6. Just resets the counter. But otherwise, I mean, the wording on this needs to be reworded because obviously it only affects one enemy and not multiples. Now for my gloves, I'm using Burnt Out and Death Sentence. Burnt Out makes it to where enemies take 25% more damage for 8 seconds, and this can also stack up to 3 times or as many times as you want if you have, the heat waves. So technically you could have it stack up 4 times because your cooldown is going to be faster than Burnt Out. So you can have up to 100% more damage in general, but yeah, you're going to be looking at 75% in total generally. And then Death Sentence, it's a 40% weapon damage increase and 30% anomaly damage increase for 5 seconds whenever you hit an enemy with Ash Blast. So you're going to be able to hit pretty much almost the whole field with Ash Blast because of the 66% skill radius increase. Now, I know there's going to be people that like to run the bottom tree buff build using Overheat. So you'd be using like parts of the mid tree and bottom tree. So that way you could use Overheat because Overheat's a much faster cooldown than Ash Blast when you have all the mods for it. And there's also a mod, the tier 1 mod that gives you and your team 30% weapon damage increase when an enemy is affected by Overheat. So any enemy that you hit with Overheat will take basically 30% more weapon damage. And it's like a 4-second cooldown. But the thing is, I personally like Ash Blast over Overheat because Ash Blast applies Ash, and that can last for a very long time, being one of the most strongest crowd control effects in the game. A lot stronger than Ice, and you're going to be able to make it to where enemies are taking 25% more damage while they're ashed, which is going to be really, really, really good. So, and the thing is, your Ash Blast is only going to be a 10-second cooldown anyway, so you only have a 5-second downtime before you can use Death Sentence again. And then for my boots, I have Fire Frenzy and Double Fun. Fire Frenzy giving you an extra Thermal Bomb, and then Double Fun allowing you to hit 2 targets rather than just 1 target with Thermal Bomb. Now, Double Fun isn't something you necessarily need to have, but really there's no better option, in my opinion, that's in the mod list that would help with your support build. So being able to apply this debuff to 2 targets rather than just 1 is definitely going to be the best option, since, I mean, you don't have to wait for a cooldown to hit that second target again, or anyways. Now, for the weapons, I have 2 different variants. So for just normal expeditions, I run Air to the Desert and the Juggler. So with the Juggler, it already comes with Scrap Grenade, and I put Shadow Comet on it. The thing is, sometimes Scrap Grenade can bug out, and when it does, it's just really annoying. And but the thing is, Shadow Comet is still really good. It still works regardless. With Air to the Desert, it's going to spawn a Sandstorm, and you can also do Shadow Comet. What I normally do is I shoot a few shots with Air to the Desert, and then I switch to the Juggler, shoot this, and then reload, switch back to Heir to the Desert, shoot, and then switch to Juggler, shoot, reload, and then switch. Basically doing that whole rotation until the Juggler starts to bug out where the Scrap Grenade doesn't come out anymore. I don't bother reloading it anymore. I just switch. And then for Eye of the Storm, I run the Death Shield and Anemoy. This makes it easier to protect your circles or your plates. All you have to do is just make sure you shoot all the rounds out of both shotguns and leave them at 0 rounds. So that way they're going to be put to auto reload. So you would shoot it all the way down to 0, and then when you auto reload, it's going to proc Moaning Winds. And when it procs, switch to the next weapon. This will proc, and then switch to your pistols. Leave your pistols on, and then you switch back to the shotguns when you need to. Now, speaking of the pistols, you're going to want to go with these types of pistols. You want to have it to come with Mark of the Stake and Snow Squall. And then the stats, you want to make sure it has at least status power on it, so that way you're maximizing the amount of status power you have. The Weapon Life Leech and Skills Life Leech is also going to be really nice because that's just healing in general, but it's not something you necessarily need to have. Now, for Mark the Stake, the reason why you want to have this is, yes, I know you're going to be burning enemies regardless with your abilities, but you're not going to be able to burn every single enemy. And the thing is, when you can burn enemies that you missed out, that, like, let's say your skills are on cooldown, you can burn those enemies that are still up, and when you reload, obviously they'll be burned. And then with the class tree perk or the class node, after your burn effect ends, it's going to inflict ash. So that's going to be really, really useful. And then Snow Squall, all you have to do is just shoot the enemy and reload, just like with Mark of the Stake. When you do that, the freeze will be applied, and then normally by the time the freeze ends, the burn ends, and then ash applies, and then you can just apply freeze on the enemy. So it's really nice for the crowd control effects. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at your skills. Now for your abilities. So the abilities are still going to be the same. If you guys don't know, you're going to be using Thermal Bomb, Ash Blast, and Heat Wave. Thermal Bomb is nice because it applies an interrupt and burn to the enemy affected by Thermal Bomb. And then when the enemy dies with the Thermal Bomb affected to them, it's going to do a decent AoE damage. Now, the more anomaly power you have, the more damage that explosion will do. Unfortunately, my damage is not going to be high enough because I only have like 1 or 2 pieces with anomaly power on it. So I'm only going to be doing 50,353 damage with my Thermal Bomb. Now for Ash Blast, it's going to be really good to have this because not only are you going to use it for the just to have it or anything for the debuff for a death sentence, but the fact that it's a giant AoE crowd control ability. Probably, like I said, one of the best AoE crowd control abilities on any character, because you can leave enemies ashed for like 20 seconds, honestly. At least to me, it feels like they're ashed for 20 seconds with this build because I have 180% status power. So they're going to be ashed for a very long time. By the time that ash ends, your cooldown, like even way before you're at the ash ends on the enemy, Ash Blast is going to be ready to go again. So you can just constantly keep Ash Blast going over and over and over until the enemy decides to become resistant, which is normally elites. Some elites, not all elites, but some of them will put that resistance shield on them, like the Broodmother. And then you have Heat Wave next. So Heat Wave is just a giant AoE heat wave, fire wave that shoots out at an enemy. It's not super strong, but it does make enemies burn, which means you will be able to apply more damage to the enemies being burned, and then when that burn ends, they will become ashed as well. Now for your class nodes, you're going to actually go 5 in the middle tree. It used to be 4 in the middle tree, but you're going to go 5. So you're going to go Magma Golem, and then Warm Up, Magma Golem, Wildfire, and Trial by Fire. So the reason why you want to go with Trial by Fire is because you get 5% more damage to enemies being burned, and then you also get with Wildfire a 10% skill cooldown reduction, or decrease all skill cooldowns by 10%, being the only class that has this. So this is the only class that can have a high or over 40% skill cooldown. And then obviously you want to make sure you get Warm Up so that way your Heat Wave has a 15% skill cooldown reduction. And then the rest, you're going to go into the top tree. So Inferno Weapon, Marble Orchard, Mark of the Anomaly, Trial of the Ashes, so the enemies take 10% more damage when afflicted with ash. Mark of the Anomaly, Incinerate, so when you burn an enemy and that burn ends, it inflicts ash on the enemy. Curse of the Pompeii, ash afflicted on enemies lasts 15% longer. Mark of the Anomaly, Inferno, wait, what? Yeah, Mark of the Anomaly, Inferno Weapon, Mark of the Anomaly, Ashes to Ashes, enemies afflicted with ash becomes vulnerable, and then Nimble as the Flame, or as a Flame, decrease all reloads by 20%. Hurt twice as long, this doesn't really matter, but the 10% less damage taken from elites is nice. And then Trial of the Ashes, which makes it to where enemies that are afflicted with ash take another 15% more damage. So you're looking at a total of 25% damage taken while ash for those enemies. And then more Marble Orchard, reduce immobilized skills by cooldown by 15%. So that's for your Ash Blast as well. So Ash Blast is going to be at a 30% skill cooldown reduction, with Heat Wave getting a 15% and then all skills at 10%. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to go ahead and show you the stats now. Obviously, the ideal build would be to have everything come with Anomaly Power, so that way your skills still can do damage. But like I said, it's not really important. You can still get gold clears in a team with this very, very easily, because your status power is going to be a lot higher. Well, unless you're using an Animoy in your hand, but if you have like the pistols, or yeah, it has to just be the pistols, or I guess the Air to the Desert. Yeah, so Air to the Desert and your pistols are the only two things that are going to have status power. But as you can see, I am now at 179.8%, which is basically 180% status power, and my global cooldown reduction is at 47.5% global cooldown, on top of the Marble Orchard and the warm-up cooldowns. Those aren't added on top of the list, but you do just add those, and then that's what it comes down to. But yeah, that's pretty much it with this video. Hopefully this helped you guys out. If it did, go and leave a like, comment, subscribe. I know you guys probably wanted to see some gameplay, but honestly the gameplay is literally the same gameplay as I've shown you before, but this is just a more enhanced and much better version of the build. So you're going to be getting these gold clears a lot easier. Now this build is going to be a little bit harder to make compared to just getting the Akari set. Just having the 3-piece Akari is going to be still really useful, still really good to use. But if you just want to be a much better buffer, debuffer, this build is going to be by far a lot better and a lot stronger to use for your team. And yeah, that's pretty much it with this video. Hopefully this helped you guys out. If it did, go and leave a like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions or concerns, let me know down in the comment section as well, and I will try my best to help you guys out to the best of my ability. If you have any suggestions or anything, again, let me know down in the comment section. And yeah, that's pretty much it. This is all Day 1. Have a good day, good night, and peace.